Hi, Jesse. Hi, Esther. Hello. Hi, Esther.
Hi, Cliff.
Good afternoon.
Cliff.
Jesse, how are you
Good
doing?
afternoon.
Hey, I said, man, Ndugu, meeting has been cancelled, Jam.
It's not cancelled. I followed up on the speakers and okay, there are a couple of other people that are joining in. Just a minute. I need to share the link with a few other people.
Yeah, let me also share the link fresh. You know, guys like joining when they know the meeting is now happening.
Okay, I see there are more. Valerie is joining in. Emma is also joining in. Okay, so far we have 4, including me. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you so much, Cliff. How are you?
I'm fine. Mambo vipi?
Poa sana.
That's where my Swahili stops. Okay, so should we wait for about 10 more minutes?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Norman is joining in, Sarah too. Okay. So a good afternoon to all of you. Happy Eid. You're welcome to the ICANN 76 ISOC Uganda readout. We are currently a few people who have joined in on Zoom, and I kindly request that we wait for about 7 to 10 minutes for most of the speakers, especially to join in. And okay. So we shall officially begin in 10 minutes. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining in early. We have just about 5 minutes before we can officially begin. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining in from. We have about 2 minutes and we'll kick off this afternoon's ICANN 76 readout. Hey, good afternoon again. I want to welcome all of you to this readout, and I think we are good to start. And yeah, so just a bit about readouts. Session readouts are a great way to increase regional engagement and to summarize the events of the ICANN public meetings for those who could not attend in person. And the readouts for this particular case is they are a blend of the local flavor. And this year's readout is spread out in two sections. And the first one is a report of what happened in each of the advisory committees and the supporting organizations at ICANN 76. And then the second part will involve a discussion of different high-level topics like universal acceptance. I'm sure most of us have heard about universal acceptance, and some of us have also actually been part of organizing the and attending the recent UA Day. Yeah, so without further speaking much, I know sometimes I can speak a lot, but let me excuse myself, and I would like to invite our first speaker for the day. Our first speaker for the day is Norman Angel. And Norman Angel is a digital rights researcher and data analyst who is currently working with the Digital Literacy Initiative, which is a nonprofit organization that works to ensure safe digital spaces for marginalized communities in Africa. And being an emerging digital thought leader, he conducts specialized digital projects and guides multiple discussions shaping digital policies. And he has been featured in several internet leadership rights conferences. So, Norman Angel, the floor is yours. Norman Angel dropped, I think, because of internet connectivity problems, but is just joining in. So kindly give us about a minute. Sorry about the delay. It's quite common for us to have connection problems, but I kindly request that we hold on shortly. Norman has just texted me and he said he's trying to have his connection ready. So can you kindly give us about a minute before he can begin his presentation?
Hey, Cliff, I've been here.
Oh, all right. Welcome, Norman.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I already gave an introduction about what you do. And yes, so if you're ready, then we can kickstart your session.
Let me just turn my camera a bit. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. As Cliff said, my name is Norman, and I'm a member of Capacity Building Working Group. I've also attended the past 4 ICANN meetings remotely, including the last one, which was in Cancun. So I would like to just share a screen. Could you enable screen sharing?
Let me work on that.
All right.
Yeah, so could you try sharing your screen now? I've made you co-host.
Yes, sure. Okay. Yeah, so my interest mostly in the last and the previous engagement I've been in universal acceptance, and that's something I thought today I could share with the community. Yeah. So I know a number of us might have or had already about universal acceptance, what it is, but maybe some I would love to share this knowledge with us. Why universal acceptance? Why universal acceptance? Why is it important, and why should we care about it? Because the DNS, as we know it, domain name system has changed drastically from 2010. Of course, previously we had like the .coms, what we call generic top-level domains, but now businesses in countries all over the world are customizing this. You can even find, according to like .london.engineering. I personally actually volunteer for they want to have a choice about the region where the language. So universal acceptance is actually like a cornerstone for internet access that enables everyone all over the world to have access to internet in a language of their choice. Because I think most of the content on internet is actually in English, yet English is not even the first most spoken language in the world. I think English comes third. There are also non-ASCII characters. So that means people in other regions that do not speak English cannot have or cannot benefit a lot from the internet and the content that is published on the internet. So universal acceptance ensures that the issues of some use from successfully completing communication online. Because if you don't know English and the content is in English, then you are not able to actually communicate effectively. So you was top-level domains, internet systems, and even email addresses are treated and can be used by all internet-enabled applications. So I think I want to talk about why should we actually care about universal acceptance? Why should we advocate for it? Because one of the major reason is that universal acceptance ensures that everyone has the ability to navigate through the internet using their domain name or email addresses. The other advantage, or why we should care about universal acceptance, is competition and innovation. Because if we're developing systems that accepts all languages, then system developers are more inclined to innovate. And as we know, competition enables innovation and better products in the market. The third reason why we should care about universal, or not everyone speaks a certain language, finish and they want to communicate on the internet, the DNS, the domain name system, and the email addresses system should be able to accept any language, even if in Mandarin, as we know, it's non-ASCII. So people should have choice about the language that they use to communicate on the internet. It's one of the other advantage because business all over the world are innovating and in search of new markets, new products. As people want new products, new markets emerge, and business is one of career advantage. This basically in regards to technical people who actually develop system. If you previously developing systems, so you career advantage in a way that people are now migrating from legacy systems into new systems that accepts all languages all over the world. So it gives an advantage to technical people, career advantage. Government and policymakers, because government and policymakers can always reach their people, the people that they are leading, if the email and the domain systems are in a language that they actually understand. This came about, why in universal acceptance? It came about the expansion of the domain name system. Previously, we had .com that we all familiar with, but now that they have introduced new include .africa, .land, .engineering, and also country code level domains like .ug, .ke for Kenya. This has enabled the largest expansion of the DNS, and everyone all over the world should have access in the language that they actually names, or which is internet domains in a language that actually in any language. For example, then 2013 onwards, the new generic top level domain introduced was more like the engineering specific business reasons. Yeah. So some of you might be asking yourself, like, so what does it really addresses? I think I talked before, like it enables users all over the world to have access to internet in a way that they understand. So in this can be divided into two: domain name system and email addresses. So we're trying to make sure that ICANN, as the governing body, is trying to make sure that domain names and email addresses, something they call email address internationalization. Even the email address headers should be able to accept any email in terms of, because we are used to something.com, but it can be .org.society, can be in a language that is different from English. So the main two technical abilities that are being UA ready addresses. So I talked about it that being UA ready, like websites and applications and services lead to better user experience when company email addresses, company email systems are UA ready. And also it allows customers using the top level domains and internationalized domain name systems to successfully use the site in a form. I think sometimes you visited like a website and it asks you to maybe convert, like translate their languages, maybe in German, maybe in French, maybe in English. If you have already you have a language, different users in regions with speak different languages can actually be able to navigate through your website and be able to access and understand what you're actually trying to communicate. So I short about internationalized domain. that enable non-ASCII characters for any labels, on also email personalization that I talked about the standard syntax be something that domain name, but now we have, you can put any language and in any category. I think that was all from me. I will now be ready to answer in case anyone has a question.
Thank you, Norman, for your presentation. Like Norman asked, is there any person who would like to shoot some questions over to Norman before we head to the next speaker?
I think also what I wanted to add is that now the Universal Acceptance Steering, also previously we have had Universal Acceptance Day that was on 28th March. You can always find around the community how you can engage and participate in enabling your country or organizations around your area. Could be capacity building, could be creating awareness about universal acceptance and all that. Yeah, I think Cliff will share more about how we can engage in this.
All right, thanks again, Norman, for that very insightful presentation about universal acceptance. And I'm sure we have some people who might have some questions, but in interest of time, we could keep those questions to the end. So roundabout now, I would like to invite Valerie. Valerie is an ICANN 76 fellow through the ICANN Fellowship Program. And the ICANN Fellowship Program is meant to strengthen the diversity of the multi-stakeholder model by fostering opportunities for individuals just like Valerie and a couple of other people that are on the call who have been ICANN Fellows before. So this it fosters opportunities for individuals from underserved and underrepresented communities to become active participants in the ICANN communities. Yeah, so Valerie, if you are ready, would like you to share with us your experience as an ICANN Fellow and a little bit more about what transpired at the ICANN 76 in Cancun, Mexico.
Thank you so much, Cliff, and I hope I'm audible enough. Could you just confirm whether you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping that you can hear me well enough. And my name is Valerie Yiega. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a Kenyan. And I'm so glad to have been given this opportunity to come and be part of the ICANN 76 ReadOut session with ISOC Uganda. I'm truly grateful. So I think for me, going into ICANN, my fellowship experience was one that was quite interesting. There was so much to learn. But for me, I've always looked at everything that I do in the internet governance space from an Africa lens. And that was the same thing I did with ICANN 76. I think I was just trying to remember my experience quite well before coming to the session to see the kind of thing that I wanted to share with the community as well. And one thing that struck me was during the Africa space, Pierre, who heads the global stakeholder engagement in the African region, talked about the Coalition for Digital Africa. And I thought, wow, what a time, because then we're gearing up to see more innovation, more internet governance issues, resilience, stability of the internet coming into Africa, which makes me question then, are we ready for the steps that are about to take place in the coming years, and how are we preparing ourselves, even as Africans, to ensure that we are at the forefront of what ICANN is doing in Africa as well, and of what other partners who are also part of the Coalition for Digital Africa are doing in this space. And just like you mentioned in the Africa space as well, like we already know there's already a root server cluster here in Nairobi, and they also want to launch one, I think by October, I guess, in another location in Africa, which means there's going to be more stability and more resilience when it comes to the internet. So for me, I think one of the greatest things coming out of the ICANN 76 meeting is what are the plans being put in place for Africa, and how are they going to be led by Africans? I think that was very, very important for me. Also, just looking at the fellowship experience and looking at the fellowship statistics, our report is about to come out, but for the ICANN 76, you'll notice that of the 40 applicants, 8 of them were Africans. So for me, I think it's always a question of, and now moving into global stakeholder engagement, and now seeing the transition that's happening within the East Africa and South Africa, Eastern and Southern Africa region, it's also looking at issues such as how do we ensure that we have continuity of fellows who are from Africa plugging into the ICANN space, just like what Norman was talking about. I think it can be a bit technical. I think moving into the fellowship, it was the question of, there were so many sessions to attend. So what session draws your greatest interest? What session can you be part of? Which then leads to a community in ICANN that you're then part of. And I think mentorship plays a big role. And I just want to shout out to Sarah on this call as well, because it really warmed my heart seeing that an ICANN 75 fellow, being Annette, who's also a past ICANN 75 fellow, and holding one of the Afralo meetings. So for me, it was a question of how do we also engage with the global stakeholder engagement in Africa and in our regions to ensure that we don't lose the number of fellows who are Africans who go into these meetings, and how do we then plug in back into the ICANN space. I also I had such a unique experience where I went into one of the constituency meetings and I could not see an African in sight. So it shocked me in that I wondered whether Africans are not interested in that space, or is it that the capacity building towards ICANN meetings to also allow more and more Africans in that space now, for instance, in the space of intellectual property, doing more and being more involved in such rooms as well. So I think just like any internet governance space, I think ICANN has the greatest potential because it's very structured. There are many meetings, of course, and there are many working groups, technical sessions, many policy reports. And I think what I really liked was the fact that for the policy sessions, they had a prep week. So before you actually get to the meeting in Cancun, there's a prep week that allows you to have an update of what's happening in the community and what can draw your interest and what you want to follow up on. I really like that. But also because it's a very intense space in terms of learning and structure, I think it's very important to also have that aspect of mentorship that moves you into a community that can help you understand what your priority areas are. So I think it's also very interesting to see how the advisory committees are doing their work, how the community itself are doing their work through the RALOs now, the RALOs meetings, that's the at-large organizations now for us in Africa being part of the Africa Region at-large organization, and just being able to ask those questions and being able to be supported through. So I think that was, for me, was very, very important. And yeah, looking at some of the policy outcomes of the meeting, and I think one thing that caught my interest was being able to see how the meetings are conducted. So for ICANN, there was a board meeting that was being held by the public board. There was a meeting on how they're going to choose their next CEO and the leadership. But there was also a meeting on WSIS plus 20, so looking at the future of internet governance, which I think would spark an interest across internet governance communities that I see we are all, the people on the call, the names are quite clear. So for me, it was a question of integrate ourselves more, not as Africans, but also people valuably contribute to the different communities at ICANN in terms of policy, in terms of advisory, whether it's chiming into the mailing list discussions, whether it is being part of the working groups like Norman just presented to us, which was very huge because we saw the universal acceptance being celebrated across different countries. Here in Kenya also, we had one steered by the Internet Society in Kenya. So I think that was really great to learn from ICANN. So the question for me always remains, what are the next steps? And I think the next steps can be empowered by across the ICANN communities as. Thank you, Cliff.
All right, thank you so much, Valerie. I don't know if we have any questions, but as for me, I just have one question. You mentioned about the Digital Coalition for Africa. To maybe talk a little bit more about it, because it's quite an interesting coalition. Do you have anything you want to talk more about it? Hello, Valerie? Okay, maybe as Valerie is getting...
Sorry, my Zoom pop-up just got mixed up and got lost. I think for me, the Coalition for Digital Africa is how stakeholders come to end expansion of it and its operation in Africa. So it's seeing us come together, whether it's the infrastructure, whether it's capacity build, whether it's creation opportunities. I think we also have the fellows on as a lot around Smart Africa and I liked the approach in terms of even the questions you think about the Coalition for Africa and how you can as plug in but Africans at the steering front to also lead this.
Okay, thank you so much, Valerie. Someone in the chat, Emmanuel Mugabe, is asking, how can we get an instance of the IMRS cluster here in Kampala? Would you also like to respond to that? Maybe, oh yes, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just getting to that question. The question is, how can they get the IMRS cluster here in Kia? Cliff, is that the question?
Yes, but then I think he's directing the question to Douglas. Emma, are you directing the question to Douglas or it's for Valerie? Okay. He's directing the question to Douglas Onyango. Douglas, are you online? Okay, so maybe he can respond to that at the
Hello, can I respond to Emma's question? Sorry, my audio had some trouble.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you very much. I will response or submission. Now, what Emma is asking about IMRS, these are managed root servers from ICANN. And to answer directly the question, you get these. So these are, they make up part of the DNS infrastructure that we have around the globe. And this, having an instance here will help us in terms of business continuity. So how do you get one, or how would you want one gets this cluster here on the continent? What would happen with the process is, of course, anyone anywhere could actually apply to ICANN and tell them I want to host these servers in a certain location. And in terms of geo-redundancy across the locations based on the continents, you would be able to, based on that, be able to get whatever it is, and then be able to do an MOU with ICANN, and then based on that, you'll be able to host this at your location. I will share further details on how this can actually be done, the application, the evaluation criteria, and all. My response to Emma. Now to my question to Norman. Norman, thank you very much for the presentation on universal acceptance. Yes. I think what you made provided a very good foundational understanding of what universal acceptance is and why it's necessary.
Yes.
My question, which is also a query, is that your presentation stopped short. It provided a very good foundational understanding of what universal acceptance, why we need it, but it didn't speak to those concrete activities that are going on right now around universal acceptance. And I thought that as an update, that would be very, very foundational, very key to us who are hearing an update from an ICANN meeting, to know exactly what activities are ongoing, or what projects are there in as far as expanding universal acceptance. What is the status? And for those that are already in progress or that have been completed, what impact have they had so far? So I would like to see if you can enrich your presentation along those lines as well, so that we have a good rounded understanding of exactly what is happening. Thank you very much, Chair. That's my submission.
Thank you, Douglas, for that. Yeah, I think you make a very good highlight about what initiatives are actually currently going on in regards to universal acceptance. I think I mentioned just shortly before I finish my presentation that there is now a universal acceptance steering group, or what's called UASG. It's a community-led initiative that was formed in 2015, and the group is made up of representatives from more than 120 companies, governments, and community groups. So the Universal Acceptance Steering Group is tasked with undertaking initiative that will effectively promote universal acceptance in terms of valid domain names and email addresses. And through it, multiple working groups, ambassadors, and local initiatives are actually being formed. So there is you can engage in like a technical working group. Those are some of the initiatives that are going on. Working group like validating the email addresses. There's also a measurement working group that identifies UA readiness gaps in the tools or technologies that are existing. Some of the other initiatives are communication working group that you can engage in to develop communication strategies that oversees the execution of and collaboration with other working groups. There are also local initiatives. I mentioned before that on 28th March, globally, it was a Universal Acceptance Day, and different regional local universal acceptance steering groups actually held initiative. And here in Uganda, we had one at Eastbat University to introduce members of the community to the concept of universal acceptance, technical and developers on why they should care about universal acceptance. So there has been conduct of national and regional universal acceptance awareness. There are trainings that are ongoing. Then there's also stakeholders engagement. I think I also mentioned something about ambassadors. So UA ambassadors can always organize training and outreach at national and regional levels. So begin from where you are with what you have. There is always support that the community is always offering to learn about UA or why we should care about it. I think there is also a technical working group that oversees remediation and work on standard. So this including the programming languages, tools, development platform, because previously most of the programming languages didn't have these capabilities. But as we know it, if you want your systems website to be UA ready, then you have to migrate the legacy systems to now a platform that is UA ready, that enable everyone around the world to access the internet. I will also share maybe a link more about this. There is a UA report, Universal Acceptance Readiness Report of financial year 2020. You can always read to learn more about universal acceptance. So I think some of the work that's going on is like what in the report, like what is the current state of universal acceptance? What are the current gaps in technologies related to making platforms UA ready, and also the other thing is, yeah, we have continuous report and publication about the current development in terms of universal acceptance. I hope I've been helpful enough to maybe answer the question about what initiatives are going on in terms of universal acceptance and how we can all engage in the movement.
Thank you so much, Norman. Maybe just to also plug into the universal acceptance discussion. Recently, there was the Universal Acceptance Day, and I would like to invite Alan to talk about the day, and he'll throw more light about what transpired during the Universal Acceptance Day. And Alan, you have about 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, Alan has just texted me and told me he's not able to. I know this is kind of a short notice, but Jose, would you care to give us a brief of the UA Day? Okay, so just a tree is not available. So I'll just give a very, very short brief about the UA Day. So the UA Day was organized by Internet Society Uganda chapter in collaboration with the university. Let me just try to get a little bit brief. Just a minute. Yeah, so the event saw different speakers, including Abdul Karim, who gave a very detailed deep dive into the technicalities of universal acceptance. And it was a 2-day training, and we had about 25 to 30 participants, physical participants, and then quite a good number engaging in online. And yeah, so that's just a bit of universal acceptance. And if you have any more questions, we can have this discussion at the end. But round about now, I would like to invite, let me just give me a minute to find out if our next speaker is ready. So we shall have a short break of about a minute. Thank you. Okay, maybe as we are waiting, I'd like to Esther Nyapendi to give a bit more about the UA Day. Esther?
Thank you, Cliff. But from what you have shared, really, I'll just again give probably what happened is we had the UA Day on the 27th and 28th of March. And it was a 2-day event that we hosted at ISBAT. We had, we were able to have about 34 participants that attended physically and 10 participants that attended online for the 2 days that we had the event. And so we were able to, you know, talk about how we can be ready for the universal acceptance, and majorly we were able to have focused group discussions with, you know, the participants for them to be able to discuss, you know, what they can do to, you know, in their communities, so that the communities are universally ready for but with that, I'll majorly talk about, we were able to have 5 guest speakers that came by, and from what you shared, we were able to have Abdul Karim, Dr. Abdul Karim, you know, come through to give us a technical training on the universal acceptance and how we can be ready for it. Basically, that's a summary of what happened. I'll hand over to you, Cliff.
All right, thank you so much, Esther, for that brief about the UA Day. I received apologies from our next speaker, Daniel, but we shall have a presentation from, not a presentation, but we shall have talk to us about the at-large. A bit more about Sarah. Sarah is a technologist and researcher who is interested in how technology and society intersect. She is a Marie Curie Research Fellow who's advocating for connected products that are more open, secure, and trustworthy through the open design of trusted things. And ICANN, Sarah has been instrumental in the internet governance space, both in Uganda and the world at large. She has been a mentor to quite a number of us, including me. She is very enthusiastic about her work and enthusiastic about seeing growth in the internet space and seeing growth in the different fellows. So yeah, so Sarah, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. I'm actually standing in for Daniel, who was supposed to be speaking today, but he's not able to. He's had challenges, so he can't join. So I'll just briefly give an update about what happened at Large Advisory Committee. So for those of you who are new to the community, the At-Large Advisory Committee participates in activities that lead to the issuing of statements, comments, proposals, and policy advice that relate to internet end users. So you'll hear many people saying that At-Large represents the interests of end users to ICANN, which all of us are end users. So if you are interested in advocating for issues of end users, and it's like different issues really, outreach and engagement, how do we train users better? How do we get our systems to support end users better? There are so many ways you can advocate for end user interests at large, might be the home for you. So during the ICANN 76 meeting in Cancun, we had a slightly less packed agenda than usual. So usually our agenda is packed, but this time we had a light agenda to allow us joint sessions from other groups, so other advisory committees and other supporting organizations, so that we can foster collaborations with them, which I think was a nice thing in my opinion. Usually we don't have an opportunity to meet with other people like that. So the first thing I should say is that for this particular meeting, LACRALO, which is Latin America and the Caribbean, had their general assembly during the ICANN meeting. So different regions usually have their general assemblies every 5 years. And AFRALO, so for us, we're going to have ours in July, which will be in Ghana, in Accra, Ghana. So they had different sessions during the ICANN meeting to discuss issues related to LACRALO. Something else that was common throughout the session was basically discussing the next round of the GTLD program. I think you had Norman earlier talking about how previously you had a few top-level domains. So TLD is a top-level domain, .com, .org, .net, etc. Then in 2012, we had a new round, which saw so many new top-level domains. I think there are over 1,000 right now. And there have been discussions about preparing for hotel.xyz, .abc, and all that. So we are preparing for the next round, but there were issues that were raised in the previous round that people are to address. And one of them, which maybe I can speak, is our group, which is the applicant support program. So one of the issues that was raised is there were very few applications from Africa, for example, Latin America. There are some regions which didn't have a lot of applications. So basically, the applicant support program is put there to support people from this group. So if you're from a community group, from a social enterprise, and just groups of the public interest, you can apply for applicant support. Then that enables you to apply for a top-level domain. Kampala would not really, I don't think .kampala would, but if you want to apply for something is for the benefit of the community, you can support program. I think there's .kids, which was one of the ones that received that support. So it's something that we discussed throughout the, like there are many sessions that covered the next round of the GTLD program and the applicant support program. Then something else that we discussed was outreach and engagement, because we always have to get new people involved in the ecosystem. It's an ongoing discussion because people keep coming, people keep leaving, but there's always constantly volunteer fatigue. It's something that, at least in our community, we've discussed. So we had a session during the ICANN meeting where we talked about things for the that Esther and Cliff have talked about, and so on and so forth. So that was around outreach and engagement. We had other sessions. For example, we had a session with the Government Advisory Committee, which I think Gloria will talk about. That's the GAC. We had another joint session with the Security and Stability Advisory Committee. We had a session with the ICANN board. And for the session with the board, we were asking the board what their priorities are, the top 3 priorities for the ICANN board, and if there are any organizational changes that they anticipate. One of the changes was, for example, the new CEO. So Valerie hinted on this, that ICANN is in the process of looking for a new CEO. And that was one of the things that we were discussing with the ICANN board. Yeah, I think that's maybe what I can say for now about the high-level sessions that we discussed. But if anyone else is part of our community and they have anything else to say, maybe you can add on to that. Okay, one more thing maybe I should add is that we also had the Joint Afro-African meeting. So at every ICANN meeting, we have a Joint Afro-African meeting looking at different topics. The Joint Afro-African meeting is between Afralo and AFSTA organization. So that those are other internet organizations in the region like AFRINIC, Africa Top Level Domain Organization, and so on and so forth. For this particular time, we were discussing best practices for DNS operations in Africa. And like just something that made me really proud is that the people who were pen holders for this particular statement were actually newcomers to our community. They'd not been there longer than 1 year, but they were able to write a statement that was very well received. So it gave me so much joy actually to see that. And I encourage many of us in the community to do that. I'll stop here for now. And if there are any questions or if anyone else wants to add on to this, please feel free. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was quite insightful. And we have a hand from Emmanuel. Hello, Emmanuel. I can see.
Hi. Yes, can I ask now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. You mentioned something about I've just remembered something around AFRINIC, and now AFRINIC has been receiving a lot of bad press, but we all know what the reason is. I don't know if this was something that was addressed within your community, or is it something that's still running on?
Okay, so regarding AFRINIC, it was not discussed at this particular ICANN 70, it was discussed at ICANN 75, which was in Kuala, Malaysia. There were some sessions where this was discussed. The AFRINIC CEO at the time was also in attendance. And I think the message that time was that the African community should tell ICANN how they can support us, which this is a recorded call. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel that ICANN should support AFRINIC more. We had a meeting last week to plan for the next strategic plan, and it's something that I raised because ICANN is international for assigned names and numbers, and I was like, okay, we are focused on the names. We need to focus on the numbers, which is where the regional internet registries fall. So ICANN, RIPE, NCC, and the other internet registries. So I don't got like an answer about how they can support us. I know they've said they can support us if we tell them how to support us. So if you have ideas about how you think ICANN can support us, I think it's a message that we can take back to them. And I think Douglas actually may have a bit more to say on this topic. I hope that answers the question though.
Sorry, before probably you leave the same topic, just note for the members that AFRINIC CEO at that time were in attendance at ICANN 55, rather 75 in Malaysia, like Sarah has indicated, appealed all, like, you know how countries have a say and all countries fall under the GAC, the Government Advisory Committee. It was noted that we take back to our governments the need for support of AFRINIC and the impact that is happening now with what they are going, of course, with the bad press and all. So we as the community, we can put the pressure of our governments to make sure that the issues of AFRINIC are of importance, just as Sarah has indicated on, we are forgetting the numbers. So that is what was noted. So it is to us as a community to make sure that we influence our government and show them how we can support AFRINIC. Thank you.
Thanks, Gloria.
Thank you, Gloria. Douglas, would you like to share some insights about the discussion at hand?
Yes, thank you very much. I am going to add or start where Gloria has stopped. So for context, I believe most of us have a little bit of background challenges that AFRINIC has had. I think the most important now is the governance crisis that is at hand in terms of the fact that a board does not exist, and the many lawsuits and how that had spilled over to affect financing of day-to-day operations at ICANN. So by way of background, those are the key issues and challenges. Now, as you recall, AFRINIC does not, it is the internet registry for the African region. It does not exist in a space of its own. No, it is one of the 5 internet registries, and as such, its mandate flows down from AFRINIC, from ICANN. It is in light of this fact that, you know, when the challenges came around AFRINIC, and seeing the danger that this poses to the overall internet ecosystem, at least in as far as the numbers is concerned, this is where all of these issues were raised. Now, the intervention, what has been done so far in terms of intervening, like you've seen this discussion both from Gloria and Sarah, in several areas of stakeholder engagement, but maybe one area that I had wanted to point out that probably has not been mentioned is the stability fund that ICANN actually holds, that's through the NRO, and via this there had been a request at some point for that to be made available to AFRINIC at one point when it could not meet its financial obligations because its accounts had been frozen. So gladly that we never ever got to a point where this thing got out of hands. Staff missed some salaries, and a few other operational issues went unattended for a little while, but that was reversed. But the key takeaway there is when AFRINIC needed this kind of bailout, there were mechanisms in place that would allow it to continue with business, whether or not it had access to its funds. And this was made possible because of the NRO or ASO, which the address supporting organization, and the entire ICANN ecosystem. So that is the addition that I wish to make, but I stay with what Sarah and Gloria are trying to put across in terms of how do we engage more, how do we involve governments, how do we involve key stakeholders to actually make sure, number one, we are able to articulate the issues that are challenging AFRINIC's day-to-day operations, and we're able to get this to the stakeholders that matter, whether it's at ICANN or it's with local governments who have, who are key stakeholders and decision makers in this process. And then as a result of those discussions, how would we actually use that to influence and get things back on track at AFRINIC? That's my submission. Thank you very much, Chair.
All right, thank you so much, Douglas and Sarah and Gloria for the insights and contributions. Now, as we move on forward, I would, we have one more speaker, and Gloria Katuku is a government advisory committee representative for Uganda, and she is a results-oriented professional with a vast experience in planning, coordinating, implementing, and development of ICT technology, e-government programs, and she's had over 10 years experience in the ICT public sector, and she specializes in ICT planning, monitoring, and evaluation. Now, it's suffice to note that government plays a key role in public policy, and Gloria, would you kindly share a bit more about what transpired in Mexico, the ICANN 76 meeting?
Thank you very much for that. First of all, I'd like to apologize that I had to park on the side. I thought it was a public holiday, and I didn't go with my computer as usual. So I'm speaking off cuff from what we discussed vis-a-vis sharing the presentation that I had earlier planned, and thinking that today's readout was postponed. Just give me a minute. Sorry once again about that. I just got a call that interrupted my connectivity. First of all, of course, ICANN meet a number of sessions. Of course, we have those sessions that we engage within the communities, and then we have those sessions that that are of important issues that are for GAC. So I'm not sure if new to this, but from the discussions, I understand that from people who I can see, we are quite a while and we would understand. So I would not go to explain what GAC is and all that. Among the things that we discuss in ICANN 76. Of course, as the GAC, we met with the board, and the main discussion within the board was to look at a number of emergency issues that were being discussed within the ecosystem. We looked at the WHOIS system, and the disclosure of WHOIS, including the law enforcement, how they go about their requests, and the time frame in which these requests are answered. Among the things also discussed with the board was on how to mitigate and the DNS abuse, and we also looked at some of in the discussions with the subsequent round of new GTLDs, like Sarah had insinuated or indicated earlier in her presentation. From our meeting with ELAC, like Sarah said, of course, there are those issues that GAC members pay attention to when they're discussed with the various communities. And particularly with the at-large advisory committee, we looked at still the DNS abuse in the context of contemporary policy advancements, and how we can coordinate within the multi-stakeholder approach in addressing these issues. And we also looked at what we had earlier discussed, so enabling inclusive information and meaningful participation with within the ELAC, and how we can collaborate by both parties. I would like to note that since I joined ICANN, these meetings are more on how governments can work with the wider community in enabling, whether it's policy enabling or on some pertinent issues that even are very impactful on the community as a whole, and governments need to pay attention. And these discussions are very meaningful in these various communities that we interact with as government advisory committee. We also had a meeting with contracted parties, and in here GAC was looking at how the contract parties are discussing ongoing negotiations within DNS abuse, how to mitigate, and GNSO discussions on the statement of interest, the policy that is out and can be discussed by you all. You just have to pay attention which community you're interested in, and you look at what is at stake. We also looked at generic name supporting organizations. We had a meeting in there that also was focusing on mostly what I can say is that GAC's most interest here is on the things that affect the public sector. So we still looked at who is disclosure system, and then we looked at the accuracy of the registration data. We also looked at DNS abuse mitigation. And we also interacted with the GNS Council on a number of issues that had been raised in the previous ICANN meeting. However, internally as GAC members, we would like to shed light on what really happened. Of course, there were elections in there, and currently the Manal who was serving handed over to Paraguay. Paraguay is now the chair of the GAC, and in there that we have, I don't know if you can always find this online. Of course, the chair for GAC now is Paraguay, assisted by Sweden, Burundi, Lebanon, United Kingdom, and China, respectively. And then one thing that I would like us to note is that within the GAC Public Sector Working Group is that, it's called Public Sector Working Group. However, this is pushed mostly by underserved region to make sure that we hold training or awareness before the GAC main sessions begin, or before the ICANN main sessions begin. All communities come together. Especially, I just liked how they bring everybody together to explain the genesis. You look at what is GNSO doing, what they're focusing on. You look at ELAC, what are they focusing on? So we had that. We had like a GAC Public Sector Working Group presenting, and on all the issues that we think should be paid attention to by the various countries. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Gloria.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was talking alone there. And of course, we had the GAC Working Group on Human Rights make the presentations. We looked at the operating principles. And maybe what I need to note is that we as Uganda on the Customer Standing Committee, and we're the liaison for GAC within the ICANN. So those are some of the things that we looked at. And then the other things of importance to GAC was subsequent new rounds of new GTLDs. GAC within the discussion noted the operation design assessment, as well as the upcoming board votes, and most of the recommendations from the new GTLD subsequent policies development at ICANN 76, with a view to initiate policy implementation required to prepare the subsequent rounds of new GTLDs. And here the GAC noted and welcomed the considerations by the board before the vote of the topic of registry voluntary committees, and those that looked at the public committees. GAC and GAC advise and early warnings and auction of last resort community applications. Of course, these are some of the things that GAC pays attention to, especially, I would not like to say that underserved regions. Sometimes we rally on with the wider, because we as governments have one voice, we have a consensus. While internally, as various countries may not pay attention to what is happening in here, the GAC advice or GAC common position sets out for all the countries that are members. We also looked at DNS abuse, which is very outstanding within the ICANN 76, with all the various communities that we interacted with. As you all know, that there's a registration data consensus policy that is underdeveloped development. It is being developed, and we as a GAC, we had to review it, and then we looked at how accuracy the information that is being provided and how fast will this. So we looked at the disclosure component, we looked at the accuracy component within the registration data policy, registration data census policy. We also looked at, some of the, of course, like we said that we have consensus as GAC. GAC as a whole has a number of advices that they give to the board. If you know the process, sometimes the board accepts all advice. We've only had where one issue where it was taken back to us, to GAC, but the consensus, what we GAC presents as consensus, the board usually considers. So in there, we had IGO protections. The government in there was to proceed with the approval of recommendations of EPDP on specific curative rights protection on implementation. That within the IGO protection area. Of course, usually we give the rationale why, then we looked at who is system, and then within the who is system, GAC advised the board to direct ICANN org to promptly engage with the public sector working groups to identify and advise solutions for confidentiality of law enforcement requests, so as not to prelude or participation by the law. So we looked at, that is one of the advices that the GAC gave to the board with in regard to who is disclosure system. We also had an advice on privacy and proxy of service. All this, by the way, you can really access this. Once these discussions are done, everything goes online. Maybe as a way of conclusion is that how can we, I know that somebody discussed this earlier. How can we increase our participation? How can we increase even the number of, sometimes there are these scholarships, they call them scholarships or fellowships, they call them fellowships. How can we increase fellowships? It's something like this, we need to purpose. I like what you did with Eastbert University. If we can replicate with all other universities across, or even those that are doing research within the university, so that more awareness is created and more engagement, because through these engagements, that's why that form our policy direction as a country and as a sector. So I call upon you all that there are those ICANN courses that are very important. If you're interested in this space, go online, do those courses. So when you're applying for these fellowships, you stand a bigger chance to getting them because you're into the space, you're into the community. Those are some of the exhibits that you get to show that you've done these courses, you're interested into the space, you've been engaging with the community, especially like the internet community across, whether you are pushing the agenda of digital inclusion within schools, or you're pushing child safety online. So that is an avenue for us as a community to be engaged. With those few words, I just want to say thank you and sorry that I have taken your call while I was driving. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Gloria. And it's such a good feeling to hear or listen to insightful presentations and speeches from the different speakers. I have personally learned a lot, and I have quite a number of questions, but I would decline to ask because I want us to, for the rest of us who would like to ask their questions, I would like to give you the floor. If you can just simply raise your hand and shoot out your question. If that is you, the time is now. So if you have any questions, please just simply raise your hand or unmute your microphone and speak out. Oh, yes, Emmanuel, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Gloria, for your updates. But you mentioned something, and I think I'm going to look out for the report if you can point me where to find it. The other hat I put on is on cybersecurity. The challenges we've been facing when it comes to cybercrime is being able to trace or establish identity behind a domain name that's being used for electronic fraud. And the channel for that is quite complicated, which is giving an upper hand to cyber criminals. Gloria mentioned it, that's one of the things we discussed as ICANN, the procedures for law enforcement to be able to get this information. So I'll be looking out for that particular one. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emma. Do we have any other questions?
Maybe before another question comes in, Emma, it is true that, okay, we had even a session where we had FBI make a presentation on how, on what the law enforcement facing because of the issues of accessibility of who is system. So that challenge is there, but there's an interim. I know that interim position is quite rigorous for somebody who is rushing, who is in a rush to make sure that they solve. But that's why we need, particularly our sectors as a country, we need to pay attention to that. There is the policy that is being developed. Does it solve our issues? Does it quicken the steps for us to access the data as we requested in order to stop the crimes that are happening they're happening around? So you can look at that policy. I know that, yes, somebody has mentioned the rigorous, okay, the number of acronyms within ICANN. Welcome to my world, my dear community members, because those are some of the things that we go through. You find like every time you have to go back and look at all these acronyms. I think what I was looking at is registration data census policy that even looks at even how the data is captured and how easy for us as a public sector law enforcement aspect, looking at DNS abuse and how we can access this. So look at it and let's plan to make sure that we attend. The good thing is that you can register to attend these meetings online and look at those programs or communities, rather. Look at those communities that fall directly under what you're currently working in as in a country or you're paying attention to as a researcher in order to make meaningful contribution. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Do we have any more questions from the rest of the participants online? Sorry, my mic was, I had muted my mic while I was speaking. Sorry about that. If we don't have any questions, I would like to invite each of the different speakers today to give closing remarks in about 2 to 3.
we just speak, or you will choose?
Well, I think you can speak, or maybe we could start.
Okay. Thank you so
Valerie.
much. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll continue. I thank you so much for today, for organizing the ICANN readout. My appeal is that we need to make a little bit more sensitization, reach out to the wider community, those that are interested. By the way, there are numerous opportunities for us to learn from if you're within the ICT sector, in terms of research related, in terms of making contribution as a country to the country or the policies that are governing our country. It's an opportunity to pay attention in the ICANN wider community in order to make an impactful. So I thank you for organizing this, and even for those members within our community that are constantly making sure that we don't go silent, we don't have. So I take the opportunity to thank the ICANN community, rather the internet community members within our chapter, who are constantly engaging everyone to make sure that we are on top of what is happening within the internet governance cycle as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Next, we'll have Valerie.
Thank you so much, Cliff. And thank you to everyone who was able to join in and listen in. I think for me, it's also just the same sentiment of being able to contribute meaningfully in the ICANN community, but with an African lens as well, keeping in mind what's happening within the region. And I really like that ISOC Uganda are actually doing this readout. I think we should also replicate the same in my own community in Kenya, because it's very important to know what's happening. For instance, the breakdown we had from Norman and from Douglas as well, to make us understand better what's happening with universal acceptance, why it's important for us to keep track of such conversations, and also just what we had from Gloria as well in terms of being able to mentor people into the community to continue what's happening within ICANN, and also the way Sarah was able to just give us a breakdown on what's happening within the advisory committees as well as the supporting organizations, and what's happening in the policy space, but also what's happening with capacity building, outreach, ICANN as an organization, and how that impacts Africa, and specifically the Eastern and Southern Africa, that region that we belong to, especially when it comes to stakeholder engagement. I think that's very, very important. And I think from a fellowship perspective, I think the dream or the idea is to see more and more fellows from Africa go into the African meetings and come out in various ICANN groups that are able to contribute and also just learn from each other, depending on the countries and the realities that we are facing in different spectrums. But also just a reminder that now that we're having the Coalition for Digital Africa, be very keen in terms of what's in it for us in terms of infrastructure, capacity building, training, and also just the opportunities that the coalition aims to have in terms of driving the African digital economy to a particular level. So I think it's very important for us to keep track of that. And I really like what you're doing within the Ugandan space of keeping track of what happens in each meeting and how we can plug in. Over to you, Cliff. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Sarah, closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cliff, for organizing this readout session. And thank you to everyone who has joined. Thank you to all the speakers. It's always nice to meet and interact with you. For anyone who is new or you've not really been involved in the ICANN ecosystem, I just want to echo what everyone else has said, that we really need more voices and we need African voices. And I understand that the things can be technical at first. Like when I attended my first ICANN meeting, I remember saying I won't come back to this place because I really didn't understand many things. But from that time, a lot of things have changed. The ICANN fellowship program has changed. They will take you through a very systematic program on like just training you, telling you this is how you do this is what this group does. And they really prepare you very well to join the community. Also, the only way you can really learn and engage is to be engaged. So join meetings, listen in. You may not understand at first, but eventually the things will start to make sense. And then also to just encourage other people to join in efforts. So if you've already been engaged, join Cliff and other people who are organizing these events so that we can put out the word even more. That's what I would say, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sarah. One thing I've learned over years is that, actually just recently, I'm just starting to implement it, is that consistency beats persistence. And I too have a challenge with acronyms. And one thing I've made deliberate for myself is to make sure I first of all get time to do the different ICANN Learn courses on the platform, on the ICANN Learn website, and that has helped me wrap my head around these different acronyms. And the more you get engaged, the more you this becomes second nature to you. So yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, for that. Now can you have some closing remarks from Norman and Joe?
Thank you so much, Cliff. Also would like to extend my appreciation to ISOC Uganda chapter for organizing this, and for everyone who participated, who was present here. Thank you so much. I also want to shout out to Sarah and my seniors, like Sarah for always encouraging being there for the community, creating awareness and building. Like Cliff said, yeah, sometimes it's at the beginning it seems really technical, but believe me, everyone can participate, because it's not only the technical bit. You can come in capacity, can come in any other, can contribute. So thank you. I just also want to encourage us to always plug in and engage in initiatives within our communities and be part of the movement. Yeah. Thanks again.
All right, thank you so much, Norman. Might be the end of our readout, but it is the start of a conversation regarding the different key things that have been talked about. So I'd like to encourage us to continue this conversation offline, social media, wherever, in your different communities. And yes, let's advocate for a better internet. Let's engage in our different thematic areas. And yeah, before I close off this readout, I'd like to extend a vote of appreciation to the organizing team. I'd like to give thanks to Emma O'Rourke, Jesse, Alan, Daniel Bilopio, Esther, and Sarah for all the amazing support that you have put into organizing this, the readout. And then also I'd like to extend a vote of thanks to the different speakers. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation to speak at this readout. If there's anyone who'd like to talk about anything, ask questions, to say something, now would be the time before we end the readout. So is there anyone who would like to say something? Okay, if there's no one, I would like to end the readout at roundabout now. Thanks again, and looking forward to engaging with you online. Bye.